And so we were talking earlier in the week about Volta and Ampere and Turing and all of the graphics cards that should be coming out soon. And with that, at the end of me filming that video, we find that, oh, freaking Nvidia announces ray tracing for DX12. Well, Microsoft announced it, but it's going to be in partnership with Nvidia for some ray tracing. And then, oh, lo and behold, a few days later, AMD is doing ray tracing, except for current GPUs can't do ray tracing. So what is happening? Are we getting new GPUs? Is this going to be adapted for current hardware? Who knows? But that's what today's video is about. And just so you know, I'm on the road again. We are in Monroe, Louisiana, staying at a friggin' Hilton. It's just, I mean, it was the cheapest hotel with an indoor heated pool so my kids could swim. Anyways, so I'm in the business center. We got some music going on. This is my favorite song that used to play when I worked at a retail store. Oh, paradise, put up a parking lot. Moving on, let's get into the actual meat and taters of this video. So no matter how we slice it as far as video games go, they're actually kind of ugly, unrealistic, and boring looking when you compare them to like real life. I mean, good effort, Horizon Zero Dawn, The Witcher 3, Crysis 3, and Assassin's Creed Origins, but you all look passable at best. And don't get me started on Minecraft. Ah! Game graphics, along with the technology and software that powers them, have been constantly improving for as long as they've been around, and whenever we reach a point where we start to think that it can't get any better than this, somehow truly revolutionary technology comes around to show us that it totally can get better than this. So, a certain something which I've previously mentioned has actually come around, and it is called ray tracing. In this video, we'll take a quick look at what the heck ray tracing is, how companies like Microsoft, Nvidia, and AMD plan to use it, and what it means for the future of games and the GPUs that power them. Now, ray tracing is nothing new. It's a rendering method that's been used in countless films and TV series over all of the years to make all of their CGI goodness look even better than just buttery silk smoothie crispiness. So trying to fully explain how it does that would just sound like reading from a Wikipedia entry and would take far too long. So let's not do that. Instead, let's just focus on the important bits. Though if you're interested in a more detailed, more in-depth explanation, be sure to check out Ryan Smith's article over on the subject over on Anantech. We're going to have that linked in the video description. So as we mentioned, ray tracing is a rendering technique, and as such takes sweet data from 2D or 3D models and spits out an image. What makes ray tracing different from the current most popular rendering method used in games, rasterization, is that it's capable of producing far more photorealistic and impressive images by more accurately portraying the way light interacts with everything in a given scene. Unfortunately, unlike rasterization, which can produce images fast enough to satisfy our never-ending hunt for higher frames per second that makes us want to conquer the graphical power more than a mammoth. That was a weird one. Anyways, our hunt for higher frame rates, you know, that's what we use rasterization for. Ray tracing is a much slower process. It's slower because it requires a heck of a lot more computational power. That's why movie and TV show makers offload the task of rendering their ray tracing workloads to massive rendering farms equipped with hundreds or even thousands of graphics cards. And that's for pre-rendered footage. Rendering games that require real-time rendering with the ray tracing method alone just isn't practical right now. So why are we even talking about it at all? Well, because not all hope is lost for having that buttery sweet, realistic light come into our video games. Can you imagine freaking Horizon Zero Dawn with that? No, you can't, because it's on a console, so we're gonna have to pick another one. Let's go with the Cyberpunk 2077. Woo! That'll look great. Microsoft recently took the stage at the annual GDC, Game Developers Conference, to announce that it will be adding ray tracing functionality to the DirectX 12 in the form of a new API called DX Ray Tracing, or DXR for short. The API doesn't serve to replace the rasterization method of rendering with ray tracing, since that would lead us back to, you know, the render time and massive computational power needed issues, and then we'd have to all use GeForce Now because they're the only ones who can pre-render it. This is just deployed by Nvidia to get us all to sign up for GeForce Now. Those punks! No, I hope that's not it. It should let developers stick primarily with rasterization while using ray tracing to fill in certain gaps. The gaps in question refer partly to elements like lighting, shadows, color effects, reflections, and materials where ray tracing could be used to enhance in making said elements look far more realistic than what's possible with just rasterization in play. So ray tracing certainly seems like the future of gaming, and game engines like Unity, Frostbite, and the Unreal Engine and Northlight are already being worked on to support it. And man, some of the demos featuring the tech released so far are nothing short of breathtaking. But to really optimize games for the new rendering method, a little something extra is needed, which is where Nvidia comes in. So the company announced that it's working on its own ray tracing tech called Nvidia RTX, which Nvidia states on their blog is a ray tracing technology that brings real-time movie quality rendering to game developers. It's also proprietary, like it was ever not going to be. This is Nvidia that we're freaking talking about. Proprietary is kind of, you know, freaking their thing. The tech works alongside Microsoft's DXR API and is essentially a combination of software and hardware improvements that are geared towards boosting ray tracing algorithm performance on Nvidia's hardware. Curiously, the only hardware Nvidia really talked about was Volta. The aforementioned blog post explains that RTX consists of a ray tracing engine running on Nvidia Volta architecture GPUs. Also, according to Forbes, Nvidia noted that RTX will also utilize the tensor cores on board Volta for ray tracing. This likely means that only Nvidia's Titan V and upcoming GPUs will be able to properly run RTX. And if that's the case, the next generation of Nvidia gaming GPUs could well launch with some tensor core power under their belts and not be cut away like a lot of people have been speculating for Ampere or Turing. The tensor cores in the Titan V are primarily used to boost the card's AI and deep learning capabilities and are more expensive to produce than CUDA cores, so most of the tech community, including us, assume next-gen GeForce cards would have no need for them. But if they are a major part of why Volta is better suited for ray tracing tasks than current cards, we wouldn't be too surprised if future GeForce cards launch with both CUDA and tensor cores. Nvidia also announced the addition of a ray tracing denoiser module to the GameWorks SDK, which will help game developers take advantage of these new capabilities. Nvidia states that this suite of tools and resources for developers will dramatically increase realism and shorten product cycles in titles developed using the new Microsoft DXR API and Nvidia RTX, and will enable, quote, ray-traced area shadows, ray-traced glossy reflections, and ray-traced ambient occlusion. So it sounds like Nvidia is having all the fun, but not content to let Microsoft and Nvidia have their own dance party of their freaking own. AMD has announced that they're dabbling in ray tracing too and dabbing for the jams. They're not actually doing that, I'm doing that. Though their focus for right now for ray tracing isn't primarily on games. The first ray tracing related announcement from the Red Team comes in the form of GPU acceleration of ray tracing techniques mixed with traditional rasterization based rendering for Radeon's ProRender engine, which means users will be able to render their work faster by, quote, using rasterization to draw basic structures and surfaces before a ray tracing process is used to compute advanced light effects like reflection, shadows, and transparency. Another, more geared towards professional 3D renderers announcement concerned Radeon Rays, formerly known as AMD Fire Rays. According to its GPU open page, Radeon Rays, not Rage, is, quote, GPU intersection acceleration library based on OpenCL 1.2, which means it'll work on any platform that supports that standard, regardless of hardware or operating system used. GG AMD for the everyman. So it's pretty clear that ray tracing is going to be a pretty big deal. All of the demos used to show off the technology, even though they're obviously not accurate presentations of what we'll be getting our hands on, hence the demo part, show remarkable promise. The photorealism and much improved overall quality ray tracing could bring gaming experiences to like massively heightened prospects that make you just go, wow, this VR thing really feels like VR, and not like I want to throw up because that wall's moving while I'm standing still. Unfortunately though, because the tech is still in its infancy when it comes to gaming, we shouldn't expect to see full, large-scale games featuring it within the next few months. Microsoft believes that at first, ray tracing will be used relatively sparingly, or to, quote, supplement current rendering techniques such as screen space reflections, which could mean that it might not take developers forever to add some of the functionality into their games. GPUs. However, over the next few years, the company expects an increase in utilization of DXR for techniques that are simply impractical for rasterization, such as true global illumination, and that eventually, quote, ray tracing may completely replace rasterization as a standard algorithm for rendering 3D scenes. But of course, that would mean GPU technology and software will need to become a lot beefier over the next few years to make that happen, which is the most exciting prospect. That being said, we wouldn't be too surprised if games made to include elements of ray tracing started coming out as soon as this year. The technique already has the 3 big names behind it, as well as more than a few developers who support it, and those fancy demos showed that their developers are already getting comfortable working with the method, and the results are phenomenal. But we're not quite sure what to make of the entire thing for now, though. On the one hand, ray tracing looks to offer the true cinematic effects and quality that gamers and developers have been waiting for decades. But on the other hand, it sounds like all of our existing GPUs, minus the Titan V of course, will be made obsolete when ray tracing moves further into the spotlight. If the new render technique really does utilize the tensor cores on Nvidia's Titan V card, then current gen cards can't really compete. I mean, the Titan V is a $3,000 card, so of course they can't compete. If you need that kind of horsepower to really experience what real-time ray tracing has to offer, then what's the point? Well, even though the Titan V seems to be where you'll get the best experience right now, it's not the only one. Gamers on older, cheaper hardware will seemingly also benefit from the new technique, although to probably a much lower degree. But even if that does turn out to be the case, it'll be more than worth it. And let's not forget that Nvidia is scheduled to release its next-gen gaming cards hopefully later this year. The timing of these announcements make us think that we can expect the new cards to be quite heavily optimized for ray tracing. Let's just hope that they're not priced on the Titan V side of things. But I think this does give more credence to the rumor that's going around that we will have 2 different sets of cards coming out from Nvidia. We would most likely have Ampere, which could be the gaming card, which would include tensor cores because that's going to be the new future of gaming with ray tracing. So you got the 2050 Ti with like 28 tensor cores. I don't know if that's a high or low amount. I actually have no idea what's on the Titan V. Titan V tensor cores.
These came back from a search.
640 tensor cores, so yeah, 28 makes sense. So 2050 Ti has, 28 tensor cores, can render ray tracing in real time. That makes things like look pretty good, like much better than ambient occlusion. And then basically everything that's been happening with Pascal and all of that is completely garbage and not worth anything. And then we get Turing, which is the minor card, which has all of the beefy specs of Ampere, which has the 12 nanometer process, has the better efficiency, has the higher, what's the word? Has the higher IPC. And then they just take out the tensor cores because likely there's not going to be an algorithm developed for tensor cores, although there probably would be. But then it would make it so that you don't buy gaming cards because there's wasted hardware that goes towards the ray tracing side of things, but that would be completely spared on the mining cards. So that's where I'm thinking at. But then this also comes at a good time where we're getting to the end of the current life cycle of consoles, with the PS4 and Xbox One being kind of old at this point. So if we have the PS5 rumored to be coming out sometimes, or being announced sometime soon, if they include tensor cores, well, actually the PlayStation would be a difficult one because Microsoft probably wouldn't want to put it on there. But AMD would. Who knows? Who knows? If the future Xbox has tensor cores, then we could see ray tracing on Xbox, and I'm sure it'd be on the PlayStation. That's not the point. The point is we are at the crux of probably getting some more realistic games than we have ever thought possible. That means VR is going to take a massive leap forward. I mean, this isn't going to necessarily help for having like higher refresh rate and higher resolution monitors, but it's going to help with the depth and the quality of the games that we're going to see, which is really exciting. But I want to hear what you guys think. Let me know where you're at with this. Are you finding this exciting? Do you find this concerning because you just bought a Pascal card or Maxwell and you don't want to upgrade to Ampere or Turing, whatever it is, when it comes out? Let me know your thoughts either down in the comments or over on our community Discord, where I tend to be the most active at this point, where I'm responding to everybody. You guys get to chat in real time with me. It's a fun experience. Top link in the video description is going to be our Discord link, so head on over there, or you can follow me on Twitter at UFDisciple and we can chat over there. Be sure to smash this like button if you enjoyed this video on ray tracing and the fact that all of our GPUs are now obsolete, and be sure to get subscribed to stay up to date on all of our tech related content. I'm Brett with the UFG Tech channel. Thank you so much for watching, and this is me signing off from Monroe, Louisiana. Okay, so quick update. Apparently, there's been an article from AMD with regards to the ray tracing stuff from GDC. It's from golem.de. AMD has apparently said already in the next few months, it can be expected that players with very powerful computers in the graphics menu under Ultra could tick a box with ray tracing. So in the next few months, all of this applies for the time being only to PCs. On consoles, AMD supplies both Sony with PlayStation, yeah, blah, blah, blah. In this situation, AMD did not want to answer about consoles. But yeah, apparently confirmed by AMD to some extent that we should start seeing this on games very, very shortly, which I would presume means that we might get a Vega refresh, which we're supposed to get this year. I would expect that Ampere or Volta or Turing will support this as well. So already in the next few months, ray tracing should be coming to an ultra graphics setting near you. Fantastic.